Now that every LEGO Star Wars August 2025 set has finally been revealed, I thought it'd be fun to go ahead and rank all of them. Now obviously these sets haven't released yet, so really this ranking is kind of just based off my initial thoughts on the product images, but since there is so much discussion going around about these sets right now, I just thought it'd be fun to go ahead and rank all of them. And first up at the number 9 spot, I of course have 75413 Republic Juggernaut with 813 pieces and a retail price of $160. And I'm pretty sure this set is the worst one in most people's minds just because of that price point. It's actually absurd how overpriced this set is, and also not to mention there's quite a bit of stuff about the build that I don't like the design of the scout tower, the placement of the stud shooters on the side, the pretty crammed and lackluster interior, and then of course not to mention the lack of wastegapes on the clone troopers. But all that stuff I'll go more in depth on when I actually get this set in person and review it. What I want to talk about in this video is mainly just the price point. $160 for this thing is absolutely absurd, and I'm not a big price per piece guy, but if you're curious, it has 813 pieces, making its price per piece 19.7 cents. Now over the past few days, I've actually seen a theory that's kind of been going around, and I thought it was really interesting, so much so that I made an entire community post about it yesterday. And the theory is basically, what if this was initially supposed to be maybe a $120 or $130 set, and that's what this build is, like LEGO intended for this to be a $120 build, but then after the price and design were finalized, someone in the financial department, I guess at LEGO, made some type of call that's like, hey, this has Galactic Marines, it's also a turbo tank, it's stuff people have been wanting for a long time, maybe we can squeeze some extra money out of them, and then they just bumped it up to 150, which is now 160 because of the tariff increase. And I know in most people's minds that theory sounds kind of ridiculous, because from what I know, the process of designing LEGO sets goes like, you know, LEGO's in the meeting room, whatever, and they're like, hey, we want an ARC 170, that's $70, design an ARC 170 within a $70 parameter, and that's what the designers do. They design an ARC 170 for a $70 price, and that's what LEGO puts out. But with this set, since the price is so high compared to the size of the build, that theory actually makes sense, that maybe the initial pitch was like, hey, design a turbo tank for $120, and that's exactly what LEGO did, and they made this. But then after the fact, they're like, hey, maybe we should make this more expensive because it has stuff people want, and then that is why it's now so overpriced. Again, I know that in most cases a theory like that sounds ridiculous, but with this specific set, I think it's actually kind of believable. Now, I'm sure you guys have also seen the talk about the design flaws within this build, mainly just it being very fragile and falling apart easily when you pick it up in certain areas. Everyone is talking about this right now, but I'm honestly taking this with a grain of salt. This is something that I'm definitely going to see for myself when I get this set in person. Next up at the number 8 spot, I have 75431 327th Star Corps Clone Troopers Battle Pack with 258 pieces and a retail price of $45 US. And just like the turbo tank, this set is also very overpriced, and that's why it's at the back of the list. And it's honestly a shame because I think the actual material in this set is really good. The only real problem with the actual set itself are just the clone troopers not having wastegapes. Their pauldron looks good, but the lack of wastecape just makes them look like football players with giant pads on. And then of course the helmet holes, and only one of the clone troopers is actually using the helmet holes. The other ones don't seem to have any head accessories, which is kind of annoying. But other than those things, I think this is a cool little battle pack. I love the AT-RT design. Yes, it does kind of look like a construction vehicle, but I still like its design. I like the colorway, and I also really like the new dwarf spider droid. I think it looks amazing. LEGO blew this design out of the water. It's super accurate to the source material. I just simply think they did a good job on it, but unfortunately I cannot rank this set any higher because it's literally $15 overpriced, especially considering the fact that the other clone trooper battle pack is also out right now, and that set is $30 and includes the exact same amount of stuff as this one, yet this one is $15 more. It's just ridiculous. So again, yeah, it's really disappointing that this set is overpriced because I actually like it for the most part. Next up at the number 7 spot, I have what was the last set to be revealed, that being 75430 Wicket the Ewok with 1010 pieces and a retail price of $130, which is yet another set that is just ridiculously overpriced. I'm actually pretty sure the original rumored price for this set was $90 and now it's somehow $130. But as for the actual build goes, I mean, honestly, I think it actually looks pretty good, but at the same time, it's also kind of take it or leave it for me. That's kind of how I feel about all the buildable characters. I think they did a surprisingly good job on the shaping of the body and the legs and the arms. The face is cursed like all buildable characters, but I mean, at the same time, Ewoks are pretty ugly little dudes, so I think it works. But again, I really don't have much to say about this one. Next up at the number 6 spot, I have 75432 V19 Torrent with 567 pieces and a retail price of $65 US. And this one actually isn't as overpriced as the others. It's still overpriced, but not as bad as some of the other sets on this list. However, I have it towards the back just because there are a lot of problems with it. In the renders, all three of the minifigures are perfect, but if you've seen what the Clone Pilot actually looks like in person, it's pretty bad. If you know, you know. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Asajj Ventress are perfect in person, but the Clone Trooper is not. However, I'll talk about that more when I review this set. And as for the actual build goes, I think when it's in its flying position, it actually looks really solid and is fairly accurate to the source material. I do think the wings should be a little bit longer, but other than that, I think the build actually looks great in its flying position. But when you fold the things up into its landing position, that's where it kind of starts to go downhill. It just makes it look super tiny, and I also hate how there's no landing gear. The landing gear are just these sloped bricks that stick down, and they don't really do much. They kind of just make it look like it's sitting flat, which is not good in my opinion. I wish it had actual functioning landing gear like the old one. And then also the side profile of this thing when it's landed looks ridiculous. The back wing sticks out so far. The old one isn't like this at all when it's landed. It actually looks good and is fairly accurate to what the V19 looks like in the Clone Wars. But when this one is landed, the side profile is so ridiculous looking to me. I haven't seen anyone else talk about this, but to me at least, in my opinion, I do not like how this looks. But again, when it's in its flying position, it actually looks pretty solid. Now making our way into the top 5, at the number 5 spot, I have 75414, the Force Burner Snowspeeder, with 349 pieces and a retail price of $55 US. And that price point is why I'm not putting it any higher on this list. I think the set itself is actually really solid. The actual design of the Snowspeeder is really nice, especially with that new windshield mold. And then the figures are really awesome too, especially that Duros on the end. That's one of the coolest figures I think I've ever seen before. I'm super excited to get that guy. And then of course you have Devin Sibgriebling too. But man, that Duros looks freaking awesome. However, again, the set's just overpriced, so that's why I didn't put it any higher. Up next, at the number 4 spot, I have probably the most hyped up set from this wave, that being 75435, Battle of Felucia Separatist MTT, with 976 pieces and a retail price of $160. And just like the Turbo Tank, this set is also very overpriced. However, unlike the Turbo Tank, I don't really see many people complaining about the price on this set. I've even seen some people saying this set is fairly priced, which I think is ridiculous. This set is not fairly priced. Like the Turbo Tank, it should not be any more than $130, because if you take the 2014 MTT, which is the same size and has about the same piece count, and adjust its original price for inflation, it comes out to about $120. So this set being $160, it's just crazy. Like the Turbo Tank, the original retail price of this set before tariffs should not have been any more than $130. And for some reason, I just don't see many people talking about that, and it kind of gets on my nerves. But regardless, the reason I have this set so much higher up on the list than the Turbo Tank is because, unlike the Turbo Tank, the build itself is actually nearly perfect. The shaping on it is actually really impressive, and obviously I love the blue and gray colorway. It's also got a great functionality with the actual droid rack itself, where it looks like it can fold down. I love that. I do have to say, one thing I am kind of worried about though is the color matching of the stickers as well as the printed dish piece on the front. The blue and gray on them is definitely liable to be off color from the blue and gray on the pieces, and I'm just hoping in person it's not too bad. But other than those things, I think the build is nearly perfect. The only real downside I'd say about the build is probably the front cannons not being long enough. And as for the figures go, I think they're all really good except for Bly. Yes, even the commando droids. I see everyone complaining about how they're gunmetal gray and not brown, which I know isn't accurate, but like at the same time, I unironically really like how they look in this color. Really, the only not good minifigure in this set is Bly, and it's simply just because he's missing the waist cape. He's got the macro binoculars, he's got the shoulder pauldron, he's got everything, he just needs the waist cape. So again, the actual substance in this set is nearly perfect. If it wasn't $30 overpriced, it'd probably be the best set from this wave. Making our way into the top 3, at the number 3 spot, I have a set that's actually fairly priced, that being 75433 Jango Fett Starship, with 707 pieces and a retail price of $70 US. So if you're a big price per piece person, there's your perfect 10 cents per piece. I do think this set could maybe be 65 or 60, but hey, at least it's not $15, $20, $30 overpriced like all the other sets. And the build actually looks pretty solid. I've never been a big fan of the 2021 Slave One, and this one looks very similar to that model. However, since it's Jango Fett Slave One, I'm honestly a bit biased. It just looks a bit better, I think. And also, if you look closely, you can actually fit 2 people in the cockpit, which is definitely an upgrade from that 2021 model. If there's something I'm not a big fan of though, it's the placement of the stud shooters at the bottom. They kind of replaced the bottom cannons that are supposed to stick out very far, and I just don't think that was the greatest idea. I do think that's actually one thing the 2021 version has over this one, because that model had the stud shooters placed up towards the middle of the ship and then also had the long cannons at the bottom, and it just looked a bit better. But for the most part, it looks good, and I think it's definitely a solid build for $70. And as for the minifigures go, you have the same inaccurate Boba Fett from the UCS Slave One, which looks fine, but like it's not accurate. It should be accurate. And then you have Jango without arm printing, which looks really good. And then you have Lama Su, and oh my gosh, is this figure perfect. Like other people, I was honestly expecting them to reuse the Kaminoan from the Obi-Wan Jedi Starfighter from 2022 in this set, but no, they actually made a complete new minifigure with a complete new head mold and everything, and it looks amazing. Props to LEGO for this figure, legitimately. And for the overall set, it's maybe $5 or $10 overpriced, but not as bad as the others. Anyways though, up next at the number 2 spot, I have a set that could unironically be argued to be underpriced. That being 75434 K2SO with 845 pieces and a retail price of $90 US. And if you've seen how big this set is compared to other buildable characters that are way more expensive than it, it's like, LEGO, what are we doing here with this price inconsistency? I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm super happy that this set is as cheap as it is, but it's like you have a set that's $90 that could easily retail for 100, 110, maybe even 120, and then you have other sets that are literally $30, $40 overpriced. It's just insane. It doesn't make any sense. And also, this set being so cheap is kind of more evidence towards the turbo tank theory I talked about earlier, because everyone wants a turbo tank and Galactic Marines, but a buildable K2SO is kind of just like take it or leave it for most people, so LEGO can price it fairly. Anyways though, price range aside, I think the build itself looks really good. From some angles, the eyes look a bit strange, but I think other than that, this build is nearly perfect. LEGO blew it out of the water with the posture and the overall look of K2SO. I just think they did a good job, and it's actually fairly priced. Not even fairly priced, it's arguably underpriced. Like I said, it's just crazy. Now finally, making our way to the number 1 spot, I have 75417 ATST with 1,513 pieces and a retail price of $200 US. And yes, I do think $200 is pretty high for this set. I think 180 would have been perfect, but compared to the pricing on the other sets on this list, I don't think that's that bad. And also, the set just looks really good. It is smaller than the previous one that they made back in 2006. However, I think the detail and the accuracy and the shaping is just overall leagues and leagues better. I mean, the thing looks amazing. It looks pretty much exactly how it looks in episode 6, which I think is really impressive. And as for the figure goes, I mean, it's an arm-printed ATST pilot. It looks really good. However, for the price point of $200, it should have dual molded legs. And also, I'm kind of in the minority on this, but there's 2 seats in the ATST, so I think for $200, we should have just got 2 of these guys. I know LEGO usually doesn't do that with sets like this. They usually only include 1 figure, but since it is a bit overpriced and the vehicle does have 2 seats, I think we should have just got 2. But overall, I think this set is really solid. I'm excited to get it, and compared to all the other sets on this list, price included, I think this one is probably the best. Anyways though, that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about my ranking down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you see on the screen right now.